Hi everybody, it's Dr. Cliff here, and I'm going to help you out with the factor rating problem. So factor rating is one of these techniques that you see used in a lot of different applications, and actually probably most everyone has used factor rating. They probably just didn't go to the trouble of writing it down on a piece of paper and actually quantifying it. So let's take a look and see what it actually is. Factor rating is used anytime we've got a decision to make, and the decision is we're trying to buy some good or buy a service from someone in a supply chain environment that's really common. I need something, either good or service, and I need to find someone who can provide that good or service, and I need to make a decision between different options. So here I've got a factor rating example that we're going to work today, and this one maybe hits a little closer to home. It's where am I going to eat? So kind of look at this layout. All factor rating tables look the same. Over here on the left-hand side, I got my factors or my criteria. These are the things that I think are important to me. So for my example here, when I'm trying to choose a restaurant, the things that are important are the price, the quality, the time, and the time being how long it's going to take me to get there and how long it's going to take to be served and to eat and to get back out. And just the environment of what the place looks like or feels like. Obviously, those criteria, those factors are different for everybody that might go to a restaurant. They're certainly different if we were thinking about buying some piece of equipment or buying IT services. So the factors or the criteria change depending on what it is you're trying to choose from. And then we got a weight. So a weight or an importance, we're going to have to put a score there for how important is price or how important is quality to me, whoever's making the decision. So again, if this was a supply chain example, we would think about for the company that's purchasing the goods or purchasing the service, that company has to decide what's more important to you. Is price more important or is quality more important? Again, different factors if we're in a supply chain environment. But we'll have to create weights. And then I have three different options here, and probably everybody's familiar with the three options. I can eat at McDonald's, I can eat at Cheddar's, or I can eat at Ruth Chris. And I'm going to try to figure out which one of those would be the best option for me based on the weights that I assign. So we'll get started here. First thing we need to do is assign weights, the level of importance to these different criteria. And for me, what's most important for me is time. So we're going to do these kind of like percentages. I'm going to give that 40% of my total weight. And actually, I really want my weights to add up to 1 so I could think of them like percentages. So right off the bat, I'm going to do that. So this will kind of help us. I'm going to put a little formula in here, a little sum formula that we've used before. And I'm going to tell it, sum up all these weights. And I'll know that those need to equal 1 by the time I'm done. So I've said time is the most important thing. It's worth 40% of my total points. And then price is next for me. I'm a broke college professor, so I got to keep the cost low. So I got 70% of my decision is based on time and price. And then another 20% is based on quality. I want the food to be decent, but it's not really a super big deal to me. And then the last, which I can look down here at my sum and see I've only got 10% of my ratings left. So it pretty much tells me if these are the ratings that I want, then the environment has got to be worth the least amount to me. I only put 10% of my decision based on the environment. Then, irrespective of the weight or the importance, is we're going to put scores for each of these three options for each criteria. And scores, we're going to use a scale of 1 to 10. Sometimes you'll see people use different scales, but I think probably 1 to 10 is easy to discriminate between one option and the other, and there's enough points there that we can see some spread. So for the first factor, like price, we're going to look at, give McDonald's a score, Cheddar's a score, Ruth Chris a score, with a 10 being the best we could be. So think about price, that actually means the lowest price would be a 10, and a 1 being the worst situation that it could be. So let's think about that. For me, I look at McDonald's, Cheddar's, and Ruth Chris. When I think in terms of price, I think McDonald's is a 10. They got really good price, which means really low price. Cheddar's is kind of in the middle there. They're like a 5. And Ruth Chris is a super expensive steakhouse. So they're a 1. a 1 being the worst score you can get in terms of price, meaning they're the most expensive. Then quality. So what about the quality of the food? Well, McDonald's isn't bad. I mean, they're not great quality, but I'm going to set them to say they're about a level of 3. And then Cheddar's, for me anyway, I feel like they're considerably better quality. They're a 7. And Ruth Chris, and they make a really good steak. So they're a 10 for me. And then when I think about time, I don't know that anybody is faster than McDonald's. Number one, there's a McDonald's on every corner, so it's very quick to get to. Travel time is quick, and they're called fast food for a reason. They are fast. So I don't know anybody that's faster than McDonald's for me to get to and get out. Cheddar's, again, kind of somewhere in the middle there, but they're definitely a sit-down restaurant, so they're not fast food. And I live over close to MTSU. Cheddar's is over in the Lowe's Target area, so it's a little bit of a drive, and I got to sit down. It's a 3 for me, so it's not real quick to go have a meal at Cheddar's. Ruth Chris is up in Nashville. That's a whole night for me, so that's a 1. And then the environment, my kids don't play in the play place anymore, so McDonald's doesn't really have anything in the environment that I find appealing. It's not gross or anything, but there's nothing appealing about the environment. Cheddar's is okay. I mean, it's got some big screen TVs. I might catch a game or something while I'm in there. They're all right. And Ruth Chris is nice. That's definitely the kind of place that you want to go if you're wanting to impress somebody with the environment. So now we've got scores for each location, and we got a weight. Now we've got to figure out what to do. So what factor rating tells us we should do is we should multiply the weight, like the 0.3, times McDonald's score of 10, and then we should multiply the 0.2 times the 3, and then 0.4 times 10, and 0.1 times 1, and come up with a kind of a total scaled score. So I could do that the way I said it. I could just do equals and point to the 0.3 and then multiply by the 10 and point to the 0.2 and multiply by the 3. But Excel's got a nice little feature again, nice little function actually, and it's called a sum product. And what a sum product will do is it'll do all those multiplications for us kind of in one quick step. And so it wants to know sum product, okay, here are my weights. And this is a situation where I know I'm going to copy this formula over to Cheddar's. So the weights are always going to be here in column B. My scores are going to be in column C for McDonald's, column D for Cheddar's, column E for Ruth's Chris. But the weight or the importance stays in column B. So I need to use one of those absolute references where we put the dollar signs in front of the numbers. So I'm going to use my F4 function to put the dollar signs. And that's just going to tell the Excel when I go to copy this formula, don't copy that B column over. But I've got my weights, and then I say, all right, what I'll multiply my weights by? I'll multiply the weights by the scores. And McDonald's has a score of 7.7. That in itself doesn't tell us anything. What we got to know is what is Cheddar's and Ruth Chris, and then we can make some comparisons. So since I put those absolute references in the B column, the weight column, they're going to stay there. And when I copy this over to Cheddar's, what will happen is the B will stay B, but the C will turn to D, so it'll pick up my Cheddar's number. So that looks like it's going to work properly. So I'm just going to copy that for Cheddar's and Ruth Chris. And let's just check, see if it looks right. Sum product, I'm still summing what's from B5 to B8. So I'm still getting those weights. And now I'm getting D5 to D8. I'm getting the scores for Cheddar's. And let's just make sure Ruth Chris looks the right way. Again, I'm B5 to B8. So I'm getting my weights from the correct column B. And I'm picking up column E for Ruth Chris. So what's this tell us? It tells us if that's my level of importance, if time is most important, and then price, and then quality, and then the environment, then McDonald's gets a much higher factor rating, 7.7, quite a bit higher than Cheddar's, which is a 4.6, and Cheddar's is higher than Ruth Chris, which is a 3.7. So clear decision there. And probably most of you would say, well, gee, I didn't need to use factor rating to figure that out. If I knew that time and price are the most important things to you, then I could tell you should go to McDonald's. Not all decisions are going to be quite that easy. Let's take a look at what might happen if our priorities change, and that's one of the reasons to do this in Excel. We could have done this by hand, and maybe for that first example, we could have used a calculator, a pencil, and a piece of paper and done it by hand. But now I say, well, oh, wait a minute. It's not me who's creating the weights for these factors. It's my daughter. And she's got a whole different set of importance than I do. So we need to change all the weights, which means we're going to change the values. And I don't want to have to do that with a calculator and a piece of paper and a pencil. Because I got it in Excel, changing will be easy. One thing, just because we change the weights, the scores don't change. McDonald's is a 10 in terms of price, no matter what. They're always the low cost or low price provider. So they're a 10. Whether that's important to me or not, they're still a 10. So when things change importance to me, the weight changes, not the scale or not the score for the individual option. The only way the score for the individual option changes is if McDonald's starts going up on their prices, or Ruth Chris, the environment changes, something like that. But for this example, we're going to change the weights. So this is my daughter. I asked her to do the same thing. I said, look at these four criteria: price, quality, time, and environment. Tell me what you think is important. And you can probably guess. Right, you got it. She says, no. And 40% of the weight is on environment. I mean, you got to be at a place where the surroundings are beautiful and the waiter is right there and they got white tablecloths. Everything needs to look nice. Then what's next most important to her? Quality of the food. I think that's interesting. The environment's more important than the food, but it's part of the experience. Next most important was time, which wasn't very important actually. And you can see right now my weights, I got 1.2. Remember, I wanted 1 here, so something's wrong. And what's wrong is I haven't changed the price. She's not paying, Dad's paying. So, of course, she says, man, price isn't all that important. So as soon as I hit that button, you can see all the calculations changed. And that's what we wanted. And that's why we did this in Excel and not with the calculator. Formula's still the same. Formula's still saying take each weight and multiply it times each score to give us kind of a weighted score. But look and see what happened. McDonald's is now my last choice. And you're like, well, how can McDonald's be your first choice one time and it's your last choice the next time? It's easy, because what's important to me changed. In the first example, it was time and price that were important to me. So I had heavy weights there, and that drove me to say McDonald's is the best choice. Now it's environment and quality of the food that are important. And so I got the exact opposite. It's the best choice is the highest factor rating of 7.3. Ruth Chris is the best place to go. Next down the list, not too far behind, is Cheddar's at a 5.2. And last is McDonald's at 4.3. So that's how we use our factor rating. Hope that makes sense. We definitely want to do it in Excel so that as things change, we can sort of play with the numbers really quickly without it taking a whole lot of effort. I'm Dr. Cliff, and I hope this helped.